Yes, I am Tamara.
I'm Chris.
And you are listening to the second episode of Stargating. Yay.
It's ironic that our second episode of our podcast is the first episode of a television show.
Is it ironic?
There's been a lot of TV shows that have come from movies over the years. Your favorite, Buffy, of course. You'd probably have to start with the movie in that instance because that show directly takes place from the first. Which came out first? Stargate came out in 97. Buffy came out in what year?
Oh, God. I think it was like 96, but it might have been later.
It's probably...
The movie's not the best. I've only seen the movie like 3 times.
It's probably in no small part due to Buffy's success that you see something like Stargate getting green light. They realize that like continuing on from where a movie left off could be successful as a television show.
There's some money in that.
Yeah.
Buffy is great, and I love Buffy, but this podcast is not about Buffy, it's about Stargate, and we are now officially starting on Stargate SG1.
This is episode 1, Children of the Gods. Episode 1 and 2, it is a two-parter.
Yes, it is a two-parter, and we're going to do it in one, because it's basically just one story, and then we will drop back down. I guess, are we going to do all two-parters in one episode?
No, because the thing about Children of the Gods was, and it's very similar to TNG's pilot, where it was originally broadcast as one single movie, like 1 2-hour event. Where
so the reason we're watching it this way is because
if I were to ask you this, where is the clear delineation between episode 1 and episode 2?
There isn't really one.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas like a proper 2-episode later down the road leaves those cliffhangers in. So naturally we've got to go episode to episode.
Actually a very good way to answer that question. And I'm satisfied by that now. So we'll do the two-parters in 2 parts. I am excited, though, because we're now finally in the television show, which is my baby. Because as much as I am a defender of the movie is not Stargate SG1. And
that's very clear.
I'm so happy. And we're going to start it now. Yay! Okay, so why don't we start with talking a little bit about how we started watching the show and what we liked about it. So you go first.
Sure. I started in high school because of Space Channel reruns, basically. I think Space Channel had it in syndication the first couple of seasons. So, I'd watch them. They'd be full of action and fun, and they'd fill that itch that I had from TNG or Star Trek leaving. I just grew to like the series from watching it because it's a really good show. I picked up, I think at that point it was in season 5 or 6. It was just after, spoiler alerts, Daniel Jackson dies and is ascended, and I believe that's where I caught up to the series, and then I started watching it episode to episode from that point, all again in syndication on Space Channel. I think the first episode I really remember watching, the first episode that like caught my attention and hooked me on the show was actually the very first Replicator episode. That one you can if anybody knows me even a little bit, they understand why that episode would scratch certain itches I have about science fiction, but with it being about a bunch of monsters and soldiers trapped on a ship fighting them off, and
Alien.
Yeah, basically
he's talking about the movie Alien. It's his favorite movie.
Yeah, and that episode was also a 2-parter too, which is what helped hooked me, because there's nothing that hooks you like a good cliffhanger ending. So
this is true.
Yeah. Because they take over the submarine at the end, the Soviet submarine.
We'll
get to that episode.
Is it my turn now?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, cool. So I started watching the show in elementary school, but like late elementary school, grade 8 or 9. And
I want to make clear that there's a 5-year difference between us, just because everybody might think, wow, he was in high school, she was in elementary school.
And
also we started watching at different times. The show was on for a very long time.
It was on for a very long time. And the very first episode that I remember watching was the episode with the crystal skull and Daniel's grandpa. And I really liked Daniel from that very first episode, and I liked the idea of the crystal skull. I thought it was really interesting and inventive, and then they did it again later in a movie that shall not be named, and it was not as good. But in this one, it was very good, and I liked it a lot. And I was like, oh, Stargate SG1, this is kind of a cool show. And then I kept watching it because it was on in the mornings right before I went to school. And I only had like a 15-minute walk to school. So I would sit and watch most of Stargate, leave about 10 minutes before the ending, and then go to school. I cannot tell you how many times I was late because I just sat and watched the ending, and it
Of
literally,
course, yeah.
and it literally ended at 8:00, and school started at 8:15.
Mhm.
So
You had to book it. You were like,
no, I didn't book it. I just walked. I was like, I'm gonna be late because I'm watching Stargate, and then they'd be all, "You're late." And I'd go, "Yep."
Mm-hmm.
I was watching Stargate, but I didn't say that because teachers wouldn't care about that. But I was watching Stargate.
Back in college, I used to schedule my classes around the 12 o'clock airing of Firefly on Space Channel.
That's fun.
Yeah.
That's fun. When I was in college, I used to drive back to my dad's place, and I would do my laundry, and I would hang out with dad and my little brother. And then I would wait until 8:00 on Sunday, and I'd watch The Walking Dead because dad had AMC and had The Walking Dead. So I'd watch The Walking Dead, and then I'd leave after The Walking Dead, and I'd be driving home at like 10:00 at night because it was 2 hours away. But I was like, no, I want to watch The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Back when I cared about it. I don't anymore.
But back to Stargate. Like, I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head when you said you watched it in the morning, because I watched it like in the evenings and stuff. It's because that show was on all of the time. Like, it just was in syndication everywhere all of the time. It was a nice time slot filler. There was like a lot of episodes of it. So it was kind of like, you know, Stargate, The Simpsons, and Seinfeld were always on a channel somewhere.
Yeah, that's really true, actually.
Yeah.
Because I vividly recall just scrolling through my dad's TV guide on the TV and just being like, Seinfeld, Stargate. Have I seen that episode? Yeah, I've seen that episode. And oh, look, Big Bang Theory's on. You know, shows that have a huge amount of episodes. So I guess it kind of makes sense that we saw it at different times and
yeah, and it really helped the
things.
show with its success. It's
so good though too.
Yes.
It doesn't hurt that it's also very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
So I have watched, spoilers alert, basically up until right after the Goa'uld were defeated. And then I kind of lost it because I didn't super care about the Ori. But I heard I missed out because I heard that the Ori got really creepy and interesting later.
You basically ditched it when Ben Browder showed up, right? Ben
Yeah,
Browder,
essentially, yeah. That's I didn't want to say it like that, but
you didn't
yes.
You didn't want to watch Fargate, as it was known at the time.
Well, to be fair, I hadn't seen Farscape at the time. I watched Farscape a couple years ago, or most of Farscape. I don't think I got through all of it, but I vividly remember watching the first couple episodes of Farscape and being all, oh, so this is just his character from Stargate.
Yeah. As for how much I've watched, much like a famous Patrick Stewart quote, I've seen everything. I've seen it all. Yeah, I stuck with the series. Actually, that's a little bit of a misnomer. There's a little bit of Atlantis I haven't seen. Some of the last couple of seasons of Atlantis.
Oh, I've seen some Atlantis.
I've seen the first couple of seasons of Atlantis. I think 3 or 4 seasons of Atlantis. I have not seen the endings. But I watched all of Stargate Universe.
I tapped out after season 1.
I watched all of Stargate SG1. I watched both of those movies, including the one that is kind of pointless. And I also got 1 episode into that web series, and then I saw Trip Tucker from Star Trek Enterprise wearing a bad gray dye job, pretending to be an old man, and I was like, this is like a bad student film. I'm not watching this anymore.
We watched that episode together, and then we were like, oh no, this is not that good. But, like we said in the opening of the last episode, we're probably going to watch it for this podcast.
Yeah. And actually, that's the one other thing I have not seen that the only came to my attention was an actual existence maybe a month ago is Stargate Infinity, the animated series.
Oh, there's an animated series.
Yes, there is. There's a cartoon series. Wikipedia notably states that it was canceled before any of its plot lines could be resolved.
Oh, no. Canceled on every cliffhanger.
Yeah, and notoriously very badly animated. I looked up the opening, and the opening was quite horrendous.
Oh, no. Was it following SG1 or?
No, I have no idea the context of the show, but I know that there's like a different kind of alien on the team.
Oh, that's fun.
And it's like a different kind of team. I think that it has the same plot as Sliders, starring Jerry O'Connell, where they get forced through one gate, and then the gate system screws up, and they have to keep going through gate after gate to try to find Earth.
Oh, hoping every leap will be the leap home.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
We've been watching a lot of Quantum Leap. Please forgive me. But yeah, I think that's a pretty good summary of our history with the show. So why don't we get right into the summary?
Yes. So we're discussing today Stargate SG1, Children of the Gods, episode 1 and 2 of the first season. This first aired July 27th, 1997. We open with an establishing shot of Earth. You know, you're in a sci-fi franchise when the first thing they have to establish is that this scene takes place on Earth. And it's interesting because you don't get the Stargate theme. You don't get the kind of the big bombast, because essentially even the movie had a television opening with that long credit sequence, and it's the same music you're going to get repeated later for the opening sequences, but none of that for this one. We're not doing opening sequences. This is a pilot and we're pitching a show. So you get the Gould music, and then it comes into Cheyenne Mountain. This is a different location, because in the movie I know for a fact it was referred to as Colorado Springs, and in the TV show,
moved it.
Colorado Springs is fictional. The Colorado Springs, like Underground Institute or whatever it was entirely fictional. Cheyenne Mountain is not, which means that you can actually get nice real establishing shots of the real actual entrance to Cheyenne Mountain that we're going to constantly recycle through this entire series.
Also, such a good idea.
Yes.
To put it in a mountain.
Yeah.
That's a really good
But
good
presumably
idea.
It's been moved from that location to storage, because it's basically still sitting in a storage room. They may have tried to use it in that room once before. It's still basically set up. They've just kind of thrown a tarp over it.
Yeah, it's still got a ramp and everything.
Yeah, this massive, powerful weapon of potential destruction. Because they know for a fact that the material it's made of, when mixed with nuclear weapons, can cause a explosion 200 times its normal. Because they've established that Jack knows that, and I'm sure Jack would have put that in his report. So they know that this thing is like a powerful source of energy, potentially.
Just in a storage closet where they're playing cards.
Throw a tarp over it.
Throw a
Throw a tarp over it. Yeah, so you said they're playing cards. That's a group of airmen who are watching the base. This actually goes back to something I said in our first episode, where I envied the guy reading the newspaper outside of the office.
Yeah, once in a while this happens to them.
That's the downside of this, is if you are just the guy who sits around watching a thing for a while. Once in a while, because even that guy in Men in Black got, I think, shot in the third one or something.
Oh, I don't know about... I can't remember that, but I do know that he was like tentacled with Johnny Knoxville's girlfriend. What's her name?
On the second one.
In the second one. So like, that can't be fun.
Yeah. So anyway,
wait, he didn't, because he gets all sassy when Will Smith walks in, doesn't he? He's just like, whole lot of weird shit going on in there.
Yeah, I think
like
so.
That?
There's the third one, something happens to him maybe. Anyway, there's a cool effect where they blow some air through the Stargate because the tarp comes up and it starts to spin. And then it opens, and coming through the Stargate are a bunch of what we will later come to know as Gould foot soldiers or Gould honor guard. They're wearing the serpentine helmet. Big step down. It's a practical effect, which I appreciate, as opposed to the CG from the movie, which hasn't terribly aged well. But they're still really clunky and huge, these helmets that everybody is wearing.
I think the big problem is that the lip goes so high over their faces.
They're all just kind of looking up and over it.
Yes,
Just like,
because it's impossible to see over it unless it does the whole, it's sunk all the way in. But they only do that when it's like, okay, it's time to see Teal'c face now. Because Teal'c's here. Yes. I love Teal'c. Also, I just want to point out that this lady in the beginning was right and dies for her trouble later on in the episode.
Every male soldier she was playing with looked really greasy.
Yes, but also that's not super surprising. They're probably 20-year-old guys. So like,
You're going to go to a Brooks and Dunn concert later.
Yeah. Oh man, Brooks and Dunn. Yeah, but like this poor lady was right. She dies for her trouble. She's like, shouldn't we call someone? Shouldn't we do something? And they're like, nah, it's dormant. It's not doing anything. And no, you should have called. You should have, I don't know, like you have a big red phone right next to you. Just use that.
I kind of realized the context of something the other day, too. I think that they were legitimately trying to make people think that that was raw because of recasting. Because we already know that they're not getting back Kurt Russell or James Spader or even Jay Davidson for this TV show, right?
No, Jay Davidson would have never come back. Too many sparkly outfits.
Yeah, so like when he enters in, he is wearing the snake motif, and Ra's thing was he had the bird guys, and also didn't he have one jackal-headed guy?
Yeah, because
he did not have any snake-headed guys in
that's
the movie.
Anubis's whole thing is jackals and
was like Raw. That's for later discussion about continuity. Why did Raw have so much? Because Raw would just have the bird people, I guess.
But they'd already used the bird people, so they couldn't use bird people again. So they had to do some sort of
no.
new
Raw
motif.
was the bird people in the movie Raw, not Apophis.
Right.
Yeah, sorry. Apophis is the bad guy here. They're introducing Apophis. And it is very clear that he has a snake motif because everybody's wearing snake helmets and he's got snake shit everywhere.
Does Apophis have a snake head? Does the actual god Apophis have a snake head?
Oh,
Google it. I'm sure he does. I know Anubis is Jackal.
Every picture I see of him, he is a giant cobra.
Ooh.
He actually looks a lot like how Jafar looks at the end of Aladdin.
Oh.
The classic Aladdin.
Ah, big scary snake man.
Yeah, but I mean, like, the average viewer probably wouldn't know that, right? The average viewer is not an Egyptologist, so they'd probably be like, oh, that's maybe actually Ra. And then they spend the whole first half of the first episode going, oh, hey, that was Ra. How can it be Ra? Ra's dead. Ra's apparently not dead because he's back. So I think that they were legitimately like, hey, the audience might actually believe that that's Ra because they know that we've recast everybody.
All of the people.
Yeah.
Except for Skara.
Yeah, the one guy we could get back. That way.
And wait, no, it's Skara and
he's not in this episode.
Isn't somebody else from the original?
No, I think in the first episode it's just Skara because Sharae is different. They do have Sharae and Skara's dad come back to the show later, and he's the same actor.
Yes.
And I always confuse his actor with the actor who played Braytek because they
he's dude from The Mummy.
Yes.
He's the Egyptian museum curator.
And the dude who played Braytek was just in Jedi Fallen Order. Oh, and he's also Geppetto on Once Upon a Time.
I'm making him watch Once Upon a Time.
Yes, that is happening.
Anyway, so they all say like, "Oh, you're crazy. Just sit back down." Blah blah blah. And then Apophis shows up through the wormhole. It's a really good intro to your bad guy because he just shows up and they shoot at him and nothing happens.
He steals a lady like so many video game bad guys.
Well, he steals the lady who was like, we should call someone. And then all the guys were like, no, this woman was right. And then she gets kidnapped.
Hey,
and
we later
dies.
learned the whole point of this trip and many other subsequent trips was he was just literally looking for like good looking tail.
Yeah, he's looking for a hot host wife.
Yeah,
for his
that one looks good. Whatever attractive woman happens to be around the gate that we go through.
Yeah, literally, just grab them and go, boys. But it's like a pretty good intro to Apophis, and then General. They finally call someone, but it's like. Pull an alarm or something, guys.
I think they hear the gunfire.
Yeah, it's like, pull the alarm or something, guys. Like, what the fuck are you doing? You're just standing here. One of you do something to alert the rest of the base. There's just a full base of army men. You don't have a single thing that could kill Apophis? Come on. But anyway, so General Hammond shows up. General Hammond!
Yes, played by Don S. Davis.
I love you so much.
Don S. Davis was already kind of famous for playing a military officer before this because he was on Twin Peaks. Also, I think he's playing a general on Twin Peaks, I believe. No, a colonel on Twin Peaks. He's a general in Stargate. He's a
general in Stargate.
So he got a promotion. He got a promotion between shows. Nice. They was also Dana Scully's dad in a couple episodes of The X-Files.
Oh.
Yeah.
We don't need to go through the history of every actor that's been on this show, though.
No, I know. It's just.
But we've done that for 2 now, and I worry that it's going to become a trend that makes this like 3 hours long. Because we could talk for 3 hours about the show and the related actors and so on. But
yeah, so he sees him escape with the lady, and he's like, oh shit, we got to get shit done. So we cut to O'Neill. O'Neill's sitting on his roof, staring at the stars, newly divorced, I think, because he wasn't divorced at the time of the movie. His wife was still there. Some guy comes up to him and he's like, yo, boy, you want to get in NASA because all of the action's going to be in outer space from now on. Space Force. I
love that Jack O'Neill now loves space. I love that it's a little character thing that they put into him. Like he went to space and then he came back and it gave him a new lease on life, kind of. Mm-hmm. Because he was in the movie, he was sitting in his bedroom, in his son's bedroom, his dead son's bedroom, holding his gun. I don't think he was in a great place mentally. You know, he was sent on a suicide mission. But now he's like up on his roof. He's looking at the stars and he's going, you know, I went to space and like, I know there's other people out there. The first planet we landed on, there's other alien species or people who are like us out there. And I know that. I like that it's a little character development that's happened between the movie and the show. Also, he's funny and his hair's not as bad.
Yeah, I don't think they're leaning into the funny as much this first episode, but they definitely correct later because they know what they have.
Yes, because the few funny lines that he did are like some of the best lines in the show.
Yeah, they really land. So so they take him back to Cheyenne Mountain, or not back to, they take him to Cheyenne Mountain to check out what's happened and talk to him about what he did. But he's been lying.
He's such a liar.
Why you always lying?
Why you always lying?
Yeah, he's been lying because he
God.
said that they destroyed the gate on the other side of Abydos by blowing up the nuclear warhead, which also obliterated Ra. That is a half-truth. At the end of the movie, they sent the nuclear warhead to Ra in space, blew up his spaceship, but the gate was still there. They used it to come back through. He's been lying about that, so the gate on Abydos clearly isn't destroyed. And at this point in the story, because of the movie, they only think the gateway is just a 1-to-1 between Earth and Abydos. They don't know that it's actually a dimensional,
they find that out later.
They find that out in this episode, that it's actually a series and a system of gateways. In this first little bit, it's a lot of like, let's recap the movie. Let's talk about what happened in the movie, who Daniel Jackson is, where he is. We bring in Kowalski and the other guy.
Kowalski and, is it Ferretti?
Ferretti, yes.
Yes.
Who were from the movies, but they were played by French Stewart and another guy, respectively, in the movie. In this, they're just two other actors. We can get them back, which Ferretti
is fine.
barely has any lines. That's the French Stewart character from the movie. But they bring them back, and they all back each other up, but...
Well, here's
General
the
Davis,
great part.
Not Don.
General Davis.
Don S. Davis. General Hammond.
Kowalski comes in and it's like an oh shit moment.
Yeah.
But they all lie. They're all lying.
Yeah.
They've all been lying since they came back, so they just keep lying. And Hammond walks up to him and basically is like, so is there anything that you need to tell me? Because he knows. He's not stupid. He knows. And he's great. And he's General Hammond. And like in these first few episodes, I remember we talked about this the first time we tried to do Stargating with our terrible equipment. But the first few episodes, he's a bit more of a hard ass.
Yeah, they're really trying to play him off as the foil, right?
Yes, they're really trying to make him like a hard ass who.
Because I think they're going with like the kind of police chief archetype, right?
Yes, but he like very quickly evolves into the General Hammond that I know and love, which is just such a good person. But this is an opening bit that's really great that shows how he has brass balls, where Jack lies through his teeth. And then Hammond calls his bluff with a nuke.
Yes,
he's like, well, that's good because I'm about to send a nuke through the gate and blow up whatever's there. And Jack's like,
shouldn't they know that the gate was destroyed?
But like it clearly wasn't.
To it,
but it clearly wasn't because Apophis came through.
I forgot to mention
right?
one quick thing about the rules of the gate. They establish in this episode and in the first movie as well. Kowalski knows it or French Stewart knows it for like no reason. That the gateway works one way. Like you open it on your end, you go through it, but you can't just immediately come back through it. You have to, and if somebody opens it on their end, you can't go through to their end. You have to go, you have to open it on your
side.
End. Yeah. If you want to go through it, you have to open it on your side. Unless you are Apophis and his Jaffa in the first scene who managed to open it, leave it open, and then walk back through it with that lady. Immediately breaking the rules because I guess I would have slowed the story down.
It would have slowed it down entirely if it had to shut off, redial the gate.
Because they don't have a dial home device, they would have had to fight their way up to the control room to reactivate it.
Not true. They have the portable ones. Remember?
Oh, they do. I don't think they've established that.
They haven't established them in the show yet, but they do have portable.
Yeah, but anyway, they very clearly go back and forth through it, which you're not supposed to do. Which I don't think they ever break that rule again, so it's kind of forgivable.
Yeah, it's kind of like we're doing this one time because we need it to be dramatic and exciting, and we'll never really do it again, and it's going to become a huge plot point in later episodes.
So Hammond genuinely does not want to vaporize 5,000 people in atomic fire?
He doesn't.
So he's kind of bluffing himself. Which makes him
already better than the last guys who were in charge of this project. Because the last guys who were in charge of this project, judging by the fact that Jack did it at all, clearly would have gone back and done it. Yeah, like they clearly would have been like, yeah, no, go back and blow it up. They wouldn't have cared. So the fact that Hammond doesn't want to, he very much does not want to vaporize people.
Because he would have been, come on, man, I know you're lying. Like, I don't want to nuke 5,000 people.
Yeah, but he calls his bluff, and it's so great because it's balls of steel, man. He's just like, yeah, I'm calling your bluff with a nuke. And then Jack immediately folds. Okay, well, nuke, no nuke. Please no send nuke. I didn't do it. I blew up the spaceship,
and
not them.
Jack knows that they need to get in touch with Daniel Jackson on the other end. They're like, well, we can send a message. And he's like, well, anybody can just send a message. He won't know it's you. So he grabs a Kleenex box and just tosses it through the gate. And then there's like a quick, let's fade in and out to establish that like
a little
10
montage.
hours have happened.
Yeah.
You know?
And then he throws it back and it says, thanks, send more.
Yes. Yeah. So they know Daniel Jackson's still alive on the other end.
Can I just point out, though, that I found it really heartwarming and touching, Jack and Kowalski's reunion, where they're all like, it's you, it's my buddy. And they like hug, and it's really nice. Setting them up as good friends. And then that continues later on.
Well, for one episode after this.
Oh, come on. It happens a little bit. But yeah, there's references to the movie all over this opening.
Yeah.
In their conversation, in the conversation they have with Hammond.
I think it's because the movie came out in 1994 and 1997 is the TV show. And like, unless you owned a VHS copy and watched it a lot, you know, you probably weren't too familiar with the movie because it's not like it has sequels.
We need to remind the new audience. And I think they do a pretty good job of working it in naturally, having it be, hey, your report said this and this. And he's like, yes, sir, this is what happened. And then him turning around being like, actually, sir, this isn't what happened. This is what happened. And I lied about it.
Yeah.
I think that was a really good way of kind of feeding it in chunks that weren't just huge exposition drops. You have the story of what happened, but then you have the actual story of what happened. And I think it was a good job because it's correct right up until a certain point, and then he's just reiterating what actually happened. I think that's really well done. It doesn't feel like they're just going, remember the movie? Do you remember the movie? This was from the movie.
Or like showing clips or something.
Yeah, there's no sequel flashback clips. Like, I don't want that. But yeah, so Jack is a genius and sends Kleenex.
And then we have our briefing scene where we get our introduction to one Samantha Carter.
Well, when he sends it through, I just want to say the event horizon is translucent now. You can see through it. You couldn't see through it in the original, which is it's a nice little touch.
Well, because it was an optical effect in the movie, whereas in the TV show it's CG, which I think is a better choice.
The Stargate's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Stargate's like a really beautiful piece of sci-fi tech, and I love it so much. I know I talked about this last episode, but I love it so much. Yeah, and then Sam's awesome intro does 0 for the rest of the next few episodes. It's a really awesome intro where they're just like,
she's just as qualified and capable as any man.
Yeah, and then
watch her get kidnapped for 3 episodes in a row.
Oh my God, it's just so disappointing. And she's a nerd, right? And she's like a big old nerd.
I think that's why she works, because she's like a foil to both Daniel Jackson and Colonel O'Neill at the same time. But like Colonel O'Neill on a physical level, Daniel Jackson on a mental level. Yeah,
she's really, really smart, really, really good at flying airplanes, apparently. They do like this whole thing where they're trying to trip her up. And is it Kowalski that does the whole, have you ever flown an airplane?
He tries to gatekeep her on
and then she
G-forces.
Goes, yes, I have. And then he goes, well, it's way worse than that. And it's like kind of like a nice moment of just like, well, it's still bad. It's worse than that. You don't know what it's like because you haven't gone through it. And Sam is like really calm and cool and collected and has clearly been dealing with military bigwigs waving their dicks at her for most of her career. So she's very obviously whatever. And then Jack has the jewel of, it's not that I don't like you because you're a woman. I don't like you because you're a scientist. All right, Jack. Well, first of all, you were like the only one who was halfway nice to Daniel in the movie. So that doesn't track with your character development as we know you so far. You were annoyed with him, but at the end of it...
What is Jack's career path? Was he an Air Force pilot too?
I don't know.
I think he's in the Air Force.
I think so. I think the Air Force is like, because that's what. So like,
what the fuck's he talking? Right? He flies $1 billion aircraft. He should like scientists. They make that shit.
Yeah, well, we have to hate the nerds. It's the 90s. We still hate nerds. True. I mean, remember, nerds are still suck
Marvel
in the 90s.
Marvel wasn't like $1 billion franchise.
Exactly. Iron Man hadn't come out yet, so nerds are still nerds. weird. And it's not great, but
it's that trope that can die any day, that trope that's like a zombie that lives forever. The technical gobbledygook, technical gobbledygook. Would you just put it in English for me?
yeah, I hate that. First of all, she would just put it in English. She wouldn't do the technical gobbledygook. They do it usually to Daniel or to one of the other scientists that works on the gate.
They do that shit in 2019.
I know.
There's like 2020. They do that in movies today.
Yeah. It's also very 90s feminism because it's the kind of feminism where, like the Quantum Leap feminism episode that we watched.
Or like Ripley or something.
She's basically defined by how good she is in comparison to men. She's not like judged based on her own accomplishments.
Oh, and that's the reason that James Cameron thinks that Sarah Connor is a much better feminist icon than Wonder Woman is.
Yeah, whatever. We can have more than one.
Yeah, I know, but it's like...
because she's like a man.
Yeah,
so because she's like a man, that makes her a great
like a
woman. But like that's not how. No, you can wear your awesome makeup and be a scientist and be an awesome Air Force pilot.
At least in Aliens, Ripley's like still has an arc about motherhood.
Yeah, like I just it's bad. It's 90s feminism where it's she's as good as a man and that makes her worthy. And it's like, well, she doesn't have to be though. And I get it. It's military and it's the 90s. So I give it a pass. It's like the Quantum Leap episode. That Quantum Leap episode that we watched, it's the way the Tess was won, which is like gag. We're trying to win a woman. That's fun. She's literally defined by her opposition to men. That's all her character does. Her character just goes, I don't need no man. I'm as good as a man, so I don't need one.
Well,
and everything she does is in opposition to men. And that's the only thing that makes it bad. If there had been like one scene where they showed that her competitiveness was a character flaw towards women and men, then she would be a more realized character. And I would have been like, damn, Quantum Leap, you wrote this in 1988. But it's still very 80s, 90s feminism where it's, yeah, she's as good as a man and that makes her worthy. And it's like, no, well, first of all, she's smarter than all of these men. And sorry, Jack, I love you, but like she's smarter than you. She's way smarter than you.
Yes.
And she's just as good as you physically when she can fly the airplanes that you can fly. And her grenades later work. She's like, I'm going to put a grenade thing up that ridge, and they kind of make fun of her for it when they get onto the alien planet, and then they work later.
Yeah, claymores. Yeah, sets up the claymores on the ridge. Yeah, she is, I think, a character that is... Well, I mean, every character on the show is vastly improved by more episodes of this show, but I think she's a character that is very clearly set up to be one thing in the pilot, and then they evolve her out of that later.
That all happens. It happens to all of them.
Mm-hmm.
They all get better as the show goes on. This is very much like a TV pilot where we're not sure where these characters are going to end up. Jack's a lot more gruff and a lot less funny, and like
because he's coming off the Kurt Russell performance.
Mm-hmm. And then Daniel is playing a James Spader attempt. But he later becomes like a straight up badass and awesome and smart. I feel like they like the human center of the group.
Yeah, I feel like they cast Richard Dean Anderson because Richard Dean Anderson was Richard Dean Anderson. Yep. Like he had his established television career and he was kind of a...
Well, he was the draw.
Yeah, he was the draw. I feel like they cast Michael Shanks because they were like, who looks closest to James Spader?
But he turned out really great. And then Sam starts as this, I'm just as good as the men folk, even though I do like nothing throughout the rest of the next few episodes. I'm just as good as the men folk, blah, blah, blah. And then later on, she becomes like a really amazing scientist and leader. Yeah. And then Teal'c is Teal'c. And Teal'c has great character development. So, like, they all kind of start off in this pilot not quite fully realized into the characters that they're going to become.
So they go through the Stargate. They decide that they need to go through. They form a team, including Sam, Kowalski, O'Neill, and a couple... Ferretti, and a couple of... Noobs, yeah, a couple of red shirts.
Desert camo this time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because they know what they're going to.
Because we actually, like...
Yeah. And they go through the gate.
Paid for it.
And they meet up with the Abyddosians and Daniel Jackson. Daniel Jackson's been living as like a king amongst the Abyddosians, but like at the same time, he's very egalitarian. He doesn't let them bow to him and stuff like that.
Well, he says he spent the whole first year trying to stop them from bowing to him. So they go through the Stargate and they find Daniel there. The Stargate sequence is updated, which is really nice. Yep. It's brand new and it looks very cool. And they use it twice because they use it at the beginning and they use it at the end. So they really wanted to get their money's worth out of it. Kowalski is nice to nerds now.
Yep. Sam nerds out about the Stargate with Daniel Jackson.
And then the military jerk faces are like, oh, don't be so excited about stuff. And it's like, just let Sam be excited about being on an alien planet, damn it. Like, you love space now because you fucking went to it, so just let her love space. Like, come on, man.
Well, now sometime they then proceed to redo the dinner scene from the movie, but this time on a much smaller set.
Yes, they do love their dinner scenes in this show. There's 2 in this episode alone. Yes.
Everybody's having dinner.
Everybody loves feeding people. It's just like, which, like, I guess it would be like one of the few universals in a fractured universe where humanity has been scattered all across, the Milky Way. But at the same time, so I guess the 2 universal constants for humanity are chocolate and dinner. Mm-hmm. Because those are the things that Daniel seems to use to make friends all the time. So they have their delicious, tasty food because they can't go to where Daniel's like, oh, I have something really cool to show you, but I can't show you because there's a sandstorm. So sit and have food with us. They're using the probe that they sent through as non-stick cookware, which is hilarious.
Must be the probe from the first movie, right? I
was thinking because they sent a probe through in the second one, and they said they didn't see anything. So I think they destroyed it, and they were using it. Yeah. And then Jack makes a crack about how the U.S. government would love to know what they were doing with it. And they're like, well, it's non-stick, so
yeah. And they're using MP5s still. They're not using P90s.
Yeah, they don't get P90s for a little bit. The bad CGI desert is bad.
Yes,
it's not very good.
We meet Shari again, who I think is Sharay in this version. Her name slightly changed.
They change it from because I wrote down, it's Shari in this one, but then later on they call her Sharay, so it changes back and forth.
It's kind of like Ghidorah versus Ghidra thing. Like King Ghidorah versus King Ghidra.
I think you could. I'm gonna stick with Sharay for now, and then if they change it again, if they settle on Shari later, I'll try to keep note of it.
All I know is that the new Shari is much whiter than the film.
Well, fun fact about this actress: she actually auditioned for the role originally in the movie, and she didn't get it. And then when they put out the casting call for the show, she went and re-auditioned for it and got it this time.
They must have done a casting through a Canadian agency then, because the returning actors are all Canadian. So
there are a lot of Canadian, but it's shot in Vancouver, so I get it. They probably all lived in Vancouver at the time, like the guys in Supernatural.
Well, I believe the movie was shot on location somewhere out in the Cairo maybe, or the desert.
We can't afford that. No. We're on a TV budget.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so bad CGI desert. Skara makes some really nice booze. Nice strong booze that Jack can't drink. He spits it out immediately, and then he's like, "Holy God!"
Yeah.
He's like,
it's probably made from desert slugs or something.
Probably. Oh no! What if it's made from the puppet? We don't see the puppet
anymore. They fermented its eggs. Yeah, no, we don't have puppet money.
Then Daniel and Shari are making out, and I guess it's less icky now because it's new people.
No, but they do have a conversation later that they gloss over.
We'll get to that.
Yes.
I'm gonna be talking about that later. And Skara tries to give Jack the lighter back, and then Jack's like, "No, I gave that to you. That's yours." And it's like, "Oh, he kept the lighter because he loves Jack so much."
Now is when we get the cross cutting to the what happens to the blonde officer, the blonde soldier. Yeah. She gets a date with the old cross-eyed shake machine.
Yes. Well, it doesn't do the shaky torture now. Now it's mind control.
Well, it does both, because at one point he mind controls her onto the table, right? And then they have that scene where like it's really goopy.
My note right under that is maybe it has settings.
Yeah.
So yeah, it must. Yeah.
It must have settings. But yeah, I think there's maybe like a dial on the back. You just clip it, doot doot doot. But yeah, so they put her on the table. This Jaffa comes over, this Jaffa lady with a Gould in her. It's the big snaky worm things who are established in this show, a departure from the movie. This show establishes here firmly that the Gould are these big like snake parasite things. Yes.
I like it better. It's like the Yeerks and Animorphs. Mm-hmm. They take over your mind, and that's kind of a little more horrifying.
Or like
than just...
that one episode of TNG, Conspiracy.
Yes.
The little wormy things in that.
Yes. Conspiracy was actually like a really good... It should have been the finale.
Oh, you didn't like the finale about the old man with the guitar who, plays guitar for 45 minutes on the Enterprise?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, whatever. Season finale.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, this poor lady, she got a raw deal, so she gets kidnapped from her army base because her idiot coworkers don't like call someone or sound an alarm, and then she gets stripped against her will in front of alien creepazoids.
She's not pretty enough.
She's not pretty enough for an alien slug.
Yes.
Right? Like the alien slug's like, nah,
standards.
bitch. Yeah, exactly. And then she dies. That's what happens to this woman.
Yeah, she gets shake machined to death.
She gets shake machined to death.
His is much better than Roz, because Roz like took a while. Like Roz was doing that to like that guy for like a solid 5 minutes. That dude was shaking his face for like a little bit. This lady, she just like shakes and then she's dead.
Yeah, and so it's like, okay, so this poor woman who was right is now dead because her idiot coworkers couldn't pull an alarm. Great, fantastic. Mm-hmm. And you can see there's also a couple little shots of Teal'c looking like,
oh yeah, Teal'c's sad. He's
conflicted.
Good acting from Christopher Judge.
Yeah, it's really good acting because like you can't really tell on his face.
It's either really good acting or just straight out the what's it called, that effect where you just cut from someone's blank face to a thing and you're like, that person is sad because they were looking at a tombstone.
Is it the Kuleshov effect?
I think that's it. The Kuleshov effect. Yes.
Kuleshov effect. I think that's what it's called.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not great.
Yeah.
It's but also you're sitting there going, well, I guess we have some stakes in the movie, right? Like confirmed people die in this movie. So, or show. Well, movie. It's like a two-parter, but it's like, okay, I guess there's some stakes. So, that's a little like, it sucks to be that lady. She got a raw deal.
Well, at this time, too, after the dinner, we cut back. They've discussed it already, and they've gone out. That's how you've seen the shitty CGI desert. But they go to a different location to see all these gate addresses. It's
a massive CGI vault.
Yeah, that Daniel Jackson has uncovered. This is the first indication to them, or the first evidence to them, that the gates are not just binary, that they are a network.
But can I just say the parts of that vault that are set are great. Mm-hmm. Because you can tell that some parts of those were actually made, and then other parts of them are it's just extending, basically, to make it look massive. But the problem is, whenever people try to make things look massive, it enters, like, uncanny valley territory, where it's like, I can tell that it's not that big and that that's green screen. Like, you can see it's clear and obvious.
Yes.
And it's obvious in this show, just as it's obvious in The Good Place.
Yeah,
with the accounting office.
It's about the lighting.
Same thing. Yeah. It's because it's so uniform all the way down. You're just like, okay, well, it's not real. But the parts of it that are a real set are exquisite and really well done. Mm-hmm. And oh, wow, that's like a really nice actual set that you built for one scene. Right? But it's only a little bit of it is actual set.
Yes.
And you can tell because you can see exactly where the blocking stops. The person who's furthest away, they're like 4 feet away from the end of the set. Oh, but yeah, so the premise of the show comes up now.
Yeah. So they basically figure out, because it's kind of smartly written. And it was actually around this point in the series, the episode, that I kind of started to think, hey, this might be one of the best pilots ever on television, because every time I had a question, they would bring it up. So they say at the start, actually, before, when they were trying to prove that Abydos was the only connection port for their gate, they say that Samantha Carter's team tried every possible combination using the original starting to try to dial out to different locations. Essentially, we sat there trying to dial every phone number we could figure out and nobody else picked up. And Daniel's like, well, I can't remember if it was Daniel specifically or Sam, but one of them, I think it is actually Daniel, figures out that there must be some sort of cosmic drift, that planets and galaxies drift and move, and therefore you need to recalculate the location based on the stars and then reinterpret that to the symbols of the gate. That we can then, and they establish this in a later in the episode, that we can then pop into some kind of supercomputer, which can conveniently spit out
about one a month.
No, they said 2 to 3 a month, which is enough for 2 to 3 episodes a month of television, with maybe one episode of a bottle.
Yeah, like, oh, look at that,
one
the
bottle
premise.
Episode, yeah.
Look at that, the premise of the show's appeared.
Yes, the convenient premise of our television show has arrived.
Yes, it showed up a fair chunk into this pilot, but still, it's pretty great. It's like, oh, so, we have a way to travel to other planets that will all conveniently look like the forests of Vancouver. And it's like, okay, well, that's pretty awesome. And then you get to see a really great little scene of Sam and Daniel nerding out and like getting really excited about science stuff. And you're like, yeah, because those little scenes are some of my favorites, where they're like nerding out about science stuff in this pilot. Because they're just so enthusiastic about space. And it's like, yeah, that's how I would be if I were in space. Yes. I'd be like, I can't believe it, we're in space. So, yeah, but then we get cut back to the temple where the Stargate is.
They get attacked.
Where they get attacked. And it's a slaughter. And these guys would have died even if the other guys had been there.
These guns do nothing. Those guns really are super ineffective. Like, I guess they switched to maybe some armor piercing rounds, or maybe that's the reasoning for the switch to the P90s later, and not just that they look cool. But these MP5s and pistols that they have are not getting any penetration on these guys.
I think they kill one of them.
Yes.
Maybe. But it's like a slaughter, and it's really bad. And even with the army guys to help, everybody gets just mowed down. And you also get to see setting number 2 on the machine, on your shaky ribbon device, when he puts Sharae to sleep. Yes. Because he uses it to put her to sleep.
Yeah, he's like one of the fucking gentlemen from Dark City. Sleep now.
Yeah, and like he grabs her because she tries to run away, and he grabs her. And then he checks her teeth, which makes him way more gross. Like, that's gross.
That's like an old school fucking slave owner move.
Yeah, it's like real gross, and like that's exactly what it's supposed to evoke in you, is like reminders of, or like buying horses for sale where you check their teeth to see how old they are.
Yeah, that's gross.
So it's real gross, and it makes him very gross. And then the 2 Abydonians that we care about get captured.
Yeah, Shari and Skara.
Yeah, the 2 that we care about. The 2 named Abydonians are captured and taken through the Stargate.
Skara, played by the same actor from the film.
Do they dial this time, or do they just go back through again?
They do. No, they dial this time.
Yeah.
Specifically, because that's the plot point for Eddie. For Eddie is...
Yes, because they dial, and Eddie gets hit and he sees it.
Yeah, because he's been like down on the ground. He's doing the old, like, I got one eye melted off thing. I'm like, ugh. But like, he's like watching the gate, and like he has an eye for detail because he sees every symbol and remembers every symbol despite lapsing into unconsciousness.
To be fair, I don't think I've ever seen anybody dial the DHD, the dial home device, any faster than a slow crawl.
Yeah.
Like, just think about how they do it before they get the automatic one. They're just like,
and there's a plot point in a later episode that relies on the fact that a dial home device dials way faster than the dial system in the gate room.
Yes.
Because they can't dial out faster than the other guys can dial in. Which means that you could
literally just go, boom, 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 and then it would, the gate would be catching up, but it would do it. So, like, I don't understand why everyone takes 4 years.
Maybe it's just really satisfying hitting those buttons.
It must
savor it. Like, for everybody, even like from a Gould King to...
Yeah, like, everyone's just like, Yeah, I love this. It's so great. They're just pressing the buttons. I kind of like that. That's my new headcanon, is that it's just so satisfying that you can't help but do it slowly and watch all the lights and be like, ooh, pretty.
Yeah.
Like,
The Goulds are really into the tactile feel of everything.
Because they're slugs usually.
Yeah.
Well, they're like eels. They're like
they
alien
don't normally have
eels.
fingers, so they like to really enjoy having fingers.
They're very goopy alien eels. Can I point that out? They're very goopy.
So Daniel says goodbye to everybody because Daniel has to go back through the gate back to Earth with everybody because he needs to find he needs to find Sharae, damn it.
He doesn't care about Skara at all.
Maybe Skara.
No, he doesn't care about Skara. And I think I remember this when we were watching.
There's several points where Jack O'Neill is like, we have to find Sharae, and Jack O'Neill's like, and also Skara.
Yeah, because I guess only one character per.
Yeah, I get to care about Skara. You care about Sharae.
Yeah, you can only care about one. Because even though, Daniel's lived with Skara for a full year at this point and probably knows the kid way better than Jack ever did, but no, only one of us can care about each character. So you can care about Skara and I'll care about my wife. Because that's all I give a shit about. Mm-hmm. That's not a great look on Daniel's part.
Yeah, so anyway, we go back to Earth and we have a debrief scene. Hammond is angry, as he tends to be in this first episode.
Yeah.
He's also just...
but wait, first, the really nice moment between the Abadonians where he goes, you have to bury the Stargate. And I'll come back in a year if I find Sharae and Skara. And I'll come back in 1 year, and then you can unbury the Stargate 1 year today.
So guys, we don't have to use this set if we don't, get rescheduled for a second season.
Yeah, exactly. But then he says nothing good can come through the Stargate. And one of the Abadonians goes, you came, Daniel. And it's like, oh.
Yeah, that's a pretty good line. He's
really nice, and it's like, oh, they care about him and they love him.
This episode is written by Brad Wright and Jonathan Glasner, the creators of the show, and I think they're really good writers, and they tend to do, the episodes they do tend to be pretty stellar. They started out on I think the Outer Limits TV show together, and then they were working on Outer Limits, and they both independently approached the channel, I think it was Showtime, about greenlighting this show, and then they both their pitches that they combined it. So it makes me think that what was one's idea, what was the slugs were definitely one person's idea.
But it's great.
Yeah, it's
a good change.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. It's creepier. It makes them more alien than just a guy with his eyes who glow, and it makes it and I bet you it's cheap because you only really need one puppet at a time.
Yes. You need a hero puppet, yeah.
Yeah, you just need one puppet for your Goa'uld. I'm sure they had multiple puppets of the Goa'uld, but yeah. Am I saying it right? Goa'uld?
Yeah, no, that's how they say it on the show. It's not like Elliot Gould.
Okay. And then, they go back through the Stargate and they bring Daniel back to the base. And this is the first time you see the iris.
Yeah, no, they invent this device that, again, proving how smart this first pilot is, coming up with ideas that I thought about, is what if we just put a big thing in front of the Stargate that blocks people from coming through? And their solution is this sci-fi-esque iris, which is very similar to the CGI effect of the helmets from the movie, but I think applied much better.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it looks awesome. The way that it closes almost all the way, and then
it's got those spikes in the middle.
Yeah, and how it's slightly open and then it closes.
Yeah,
because it's not. If it's slammed together, it would be bad. I really like that little detail. Mm-hmm. I like the spikes.
I like the thunking sound.
Yes,
that you hear later when they're being chased.
When they hit it.
You're like, oh, that's not good. They get obliterated. Does someone have to hose that thing down afterwards?
No, I think literally the space between it is so little that they materialize into the iris and then they just fall back through.
Yeah, but you think they'd leave behind some kind of blood.
No, I think it just gets auto-cleansed because it explodes outwards and inwards, right?
Oh, I guess it's just their energy. They don't actually reform. It's like a transporter.
Yeah, it's like they get thunked.
Yeah.
And then they get sent back through and then their bodies are whatever's left of them would appear back on like in the cosmos, because they don't fall back through. You don't get to, so they just don't materialize, and they just like thunk into the iris and then through the cosmos, because I think it's like such a thin space between the two that you wouldn't really be able to So
we have another boardroom scene where everybody sits down and talks about their feelings. But it's kind of the debrief scene where they debrief Daniel Jackson, and Hammond is angry at Daniel Jackson for not being dead.
Yeah.
And then
that's why he's mad.
In the middle of the meeting, we are leaving a bit out about Hammond's asshole assistant, but he doesn't really become like a huge deal until
he shows up a couple times. He shows up in the first boardroom scene where they're basically all like, we're going to go through the Stargate. And then this loser is like, I still think we should bury it, General Hammond. And it's like, are you serious? We got this whole team together. We're all sitting here in this boardroom talking about going through the Stargate, and you're over here like, I think we should bury it. Like, nah, man, the decision's been made. Yeah. If you wanted to voice an opinion, you should have done it earlier, because we're clearly going. We're all sitting here in this room talking about going.
He's like a real like cream and worm tongue type.
Ooh, yeah, he is. He's just like sleazy and unlikable. Yeah. And through the whole thing, you're going, oh, I hate you. And I think that's probably why they get rid of him after like 3 episodes.
Yes.
The guy does not last long.
No, he doesn't.
No. They're like, Hammond's a hit. Samuel's maybe not so much. And maybe they were trying to make him the voice of reason. Maybe they were trying to make him a character who, I don't know, was trying to be the devil's advocate, but they just didn't write him well, so he just came off like an asshole. But before that, we see Teal'c and Skara, because we see them at the whatever.
Teal'c's doing the thing again. He does several times throughout this episode where he looks off into the middle distance forlornly, and you're like, oh man, that dude's upset about what's happening.
But also, isn't this the part where Skara like tries to go for him and you see a Skara puppet? I remember there was a terrible Skara puppet.
When he like lifts him up or something?
Yeah, he lifts him up and it was a terrible Skara puppet.
I didn't notice that. I'll have to go back and look.
You didn't see the terrible Skara puppet? I thought I pointed it out to you. Oh no, it was bad. There was a part with a terrible Skara puppet. I think it was when he was getting kidnapped, but it might have been when he was
they're like in a holding area.
Yeah, and then it might have been in the holding area.
This is the same holding area they're in for the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Yes.
But before that, during the middle of the briefing.
Oh, and they're like Freddy wakes up?
Yeah, Freddy wakes up. Is it Freddy or Freddy?
Freddy. It's not Freddy like Freddy.
He wakes up mid-briefing to save the day, and they all just run out, and then after they all just run out, Hammond's like, dismissed, and you're like, yeah, sure, whatever, they were listening.
I was really struggling there for a moment to come up with a famous Freddy, and I'm like, Freddy Krueger?
Freddie Mercury? Come on, man.
There's so many famous Freddys.
There's so many Freddys. But yeah, it's not. Oh wait, no, is that the next briefing? They don't have the briefing. We skipped a bunch because there's that whole bit with
Well, they have a debrief when they come through the gate, and then later they have a boardroom meeting. But there is a bit of like, so there's just basically some character development between
Jack and Daniel.
Yeah, it's a lot of let's talk about our feelings.
Yeah, because like poor Daniel, he's standing there and he goes, they don't know what to do with me.
This is the aforementioned scene where it's like, where he's like, I miss Sharae, I need to get her back, and O'Neill's like, and also Skara.
Well, he doesn't say it like that. He just says, we got to get Skara. But because they don't question that only one of them cares about each character because they're written that way. But he drags Daniel home with him because Daniel's just standing alone.
They go back to his place.
They go back to Jack's place, and Daniel's just standing alone in Cheyenne Mountain, and he goes, what's going on? And he goes, they don't know what to do with me. And I just wrote down, why did they drag Daniel back if they had no idea what to do with him? If they had no plan for coming back and you knew Daniel was alive, you should have had a room set up or something, guy. You knew he was coming back with Jack. Mm-hmm. So what do you do? But fine, it's fine because it leads to this really nice character moment between the two of them where they rewrite Daniel and Sharae's, now I'm saying Sharae's life together to make it less creepy. Because he's all like, oh yeah, she always laughed about everyone bowing at me, because this is the part where he says, I spent the first few months getting people to stop bowing. He goes, Share, she never bowed. She just laughed. She thought it was hysterical. And it's like, no, dude, she was given to you as a gift. She's given to you as a present. Like, she's your wife that you were given and you accepted, and then you married her. And now you're sitting here going like, oh, it was equal because she laughed at the fact that everyone bowed at me and she wasn't subservient to me. But it's like, nah, man, she was still given to you.
Yeah.
It's just the reason why you bonded is because you, instead of having sex with her, tried to write stuff to her because she was given to you as a present. So it's fine show that you're trying to rewrite it and just gloss over the issue. But
I don't think he ever assumed property ownership over her. He never treated her like that. And that was part of the reason she stayed with him.
No, yeah, but it's a little to marry a woman that you're given. Like, he makes out with her at the end, and they've talked twice.
Yeah.
And then they're married. Like, it's just, it's still iffy.
So anyway, they all decide they need to go back through the Stargate. They've uncovered the address that Ferretti witnessed, and they're going to enter it in and go through and see what happened and try to get back the people that they lost. Daniel Jackson bribes his way onto the team. Not really bribes, but just kind of like, yeah, you put me on that team because I'm important.
Well, Daniel has a nice standing up for himself scene.
Yes.
Where he's basically like, no, I'm going
shown
with
that he's grown
to
a bit
find my wife.
Movie,
yeah, he's got some spine. Probably because he's now in a leadership position because he married the chieftain's daughter. Just saying. So, and Jack is one of those friends who helps you advance too, because Jack is the reason why Kowalski gets SG2.
Yes.
He keeps recommending to Hammond that, Kowalski should have his own command. Mm-hmm. So Jack's the kind of friend who lifts you up with him. Yeah. Which is really nice.
So SG1 and SG2 are going through the gate. SG2 is going to hang back by the gate while SG1 pushes forward. They end up on the strange alien world of outer British Columbia.
There's also some blatant disrespect to the general's second command here.
Yes.
Because he says to him, if SG1 does not return, you're to come back through the Stargate.
Yeah, and then
wait for
on the other side of the gate, he's like, I'll wait here.
No, he says it right in front of him. He says to Dan, he says to Jack, don't worry, Colonel, we won't leave without you. And it's like, you saying this right in front of the guy. Yeah. Like, this is the general's second in command.
So they travel into the forest and they run into the monks who all worship Thulsa aka Apophis. And they show up and they're like, we come through the, what is it, Chappa Eye is how you say Stargate in Gould.
Chappa Eye.
Yeah, Gould. And they're all like, oh, that must mean you're like gods. Let's bring us with you to
dinner.
Yeah.
Again.
I just want to point out that both Apophis and Thulsa are snake lords who have societies built around worshiping snakes. And they both, spoiler alert, kill the main character's girl by stabbing her in the back with a snake.
Yeah.
So
I don't know how that works.
There's some similarities there.
Yes. But they also get their iris codes, their first ever iris codes. So they have a little handheld jobby to type in the iris codes. They're still paying for the cold makeup for when you go through the Stargate.
Yeah.
Because that was canon from the first one, is that you get
from the movie, yeah.
It's really cold. So they're still paying for that. But that goes away pretty quick, if I remember correctly. And then Daniel's allergies show up.
Yes. Also, because they bring him to another feast, another dinner scene.
Yeah,
all the
more dinner.
It begs the question: just how much alien meat will Daniel Jackson have to eat before this series is over?
Yeah. So much. It's really good, but yeah.
Yeah. And then they're immediately captured.
Yes. Well, first we see Share being chosen by the eel puppet.
Her choosing goes well.
Choosing. And the stupid. I just have a note here that says the eel puppet is not as good as the cow puppet from the movie.
No.
The eel puppet's
the eel is
okay.
not voiced by Frank Welker.
This is true. Is it? though?
No.
Could it be? It could be. Like
It very well could be, but I'm confident that it's
But
not.
you're pretty sure it's not. All right.
I'm pretty sure it's at times I'm voiced by Frank Welker.
Yeah, and then the thing chooses her, and she gets turned over, and it goes into the back of her neck, because that's how it goes.
It reminds me of a movie that came out, I think, a year before this movie, which was called The Puppet Masters.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a 1995, 1996 movie. But that's very much the same thing where, like, there's these slugs that get on your back that, like, put a tentacle right into your spine. And it's very much the same effect, and it makes me equally uncomfortable both.
Yeah. And that's where the conversation happens, where Sam is like, so you were given your wife and you accepted, and then right before they right before they have to have that conversation, that's when the monks show up.
Yes.
So they're literally like, oh wait, there's people coming, we can't have that conversation because we don't want to have to deal with it.
So we'll not have it now or ever again. Yeah,
literally, we're not going to bring it up because we don't know how to solve that problem, which means that they sat down originally to write that scene. That's why they had it at the beginning where Sam is like, and you accepted. And then they sat there for just 2 days trying to write that scene, and they were like, let's just have the monks show up now.
Yeah.
And then we don't have to do it. And we'll write about it later, because they just couldn't figure out a way to tackle that subject without Daniel sounding like a complete sleazeball. Because guess what? It's really hard to make Daniel not sound like a complete sleazeball when you say, yeah, her dad gave her to me.
Yeah.
And I get it. They're trying to change the dynamic, but like the bottom line is she couldn't read or write when he first met her. So like there's a problem there.
So Share and Apophis make their now infected by Gould, Share and Apophis make their glorious entrance into what they think is going to be their feast. They must be like really confused.
I love her outfit.
It'd be like if like you're like, oh, I've got this really nice dinner set up for it's basically like a rehearsal dinner because I guess they were just married, or it's like a reception because I guess they were just married. So it'd be like showing up to your reception and seeing just 4 armed military personnel standing there being like, I thought we were invited.
That's my wife.
Yeah, that's my wife. Yeah.
That's basically what it is.
Immediately he just blows their cover and they are immediately captured.
And Jack falls for the same human shield tactics that he fell for in the movie.
Yes. Known weakness.
They take human shields and then he backs down because he hesitates.
Well, because Apophis is not a complete freak like Ra was and doesn't have an entourage of half-naked boys ready to shield him at any moment.
Yeah. Daniel gets yeeted into a wall.
Yeah, Apophis likes the ladies.
Yeah, he does. Daniel gets yeeted into a wall and passes out immediately. Yeah. And then the others are captured. I really liked the line, no offense, but they're way smarter than we are. I really liked that. I thought that was fun because, like, yeah, they are. And then Teal'c is so into Jack's watch that they have like a conversation about it.
Yeah, so everyone's captured. They're taken to that prison that we were shown earlier. Scar is there. This is where Scar name drops the title of the episode, where he says they're choosing people, and they're like, choosing what? Choosing, look at the camera, beat, the children of the gods.
They do look at the camera. It's not The Office.
Yeah, so and basically they're all like the Gould come back and they want to choose yet another person, and they end up choosing Skara, and it's really like, oh, there's nothing they can do about it. It's really heart-wrenching, and Jack is pleading, and they take Skara out, and then Apophis is like, murk the rest of them. Like, I got no use for these people.
Well, we keep cutting back in between to
there's some base camp stuff.
Hammond and to base camp. And then, like, Kowalski's like, no, we're not leaving without them because he's the man. And then we cut back to Hammond, who his second in command, Samuels, is going, they should have checked in by now. Yeah. And he's just like, we have 3 hours. I'm going to keep my finger off the button until the last possible second, because in this world, he is a rational military man who has like a brain in his head and who isn't just going to blow up his people on the assumption that they've all died, which is great because he literally at the last second is when they show up. Like they show up like 5 minutes before it's supposed to blow up. And it's like, okay. And then Scar tries to do something, and I really liked how Teal'c was like low key giving him tips. Like he wasn't going to bow and then low key like Teal'c just like nods, like you should be bowing. And so he goes down and does it because it's like a sort of, hey man,
this is how you don't die, maybe?
Yeah, like this is how you don't die. And it's really nice little foreshadowing. There's a lot of nice little foreshadowing about Teal'c's turn in this.
But at the same time, it's not like obvious. It's still a surprise when it happens. I think it's still really executed as a really nice surprise. Because what happens is Apophis says, kill them all. And Teal'c is like, okay, I guess I have to kill all these people. And Jack's like, Jack says something to the effect of, don't let them die. Help me and I can help them all. And Teal'c says, many have said that. And then he like turns around and starts shooting his own guys. And he's like, but you are the first, I believe it could do it.
Has a chance.
Yeah. First, I believe could do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he like throws the gun to Jack, who knows how to use the staff weapon, who Jack knows how to use it because of the movie. They established that earlier.
It's
in the episode
very good.
Too. Yeah. They do a really good job of establishing everything you need to establish, that he knows how that weapon works, right?
Yeah, because they did that in the earlier one with the autopsy scene on the Jaffa.
Yeah, because one Jaffa was left dead behind.
Yes, they managed to kill one. But there's like a lot. No, they killed two because they say like there's a male and a female.
Oh, yeah.
But there's some really, really good stuff in this little choosing Skara scene. Teal'c giving Jack low-key tips. The part where Daniel like runs up and says how much of the host survives, and the Gould lies and says like, because it's a lie, we find out later it's a straight up lie because of the episode with Skara later. But he's like, nothing of the host survives. And it's effectively horrible. It's like this moment of, oh God. So like they just take you over and you're completely gone. You're just a body to them. But it's not true. It's wrong. But yeah, Jack is a diplomatic guy and turns the asset, which is great.
We are also introduced at this point, tangentially, he gets a little bit more action later on, but we're introduced to my favorite character of the episode, Big Ugly White Caveman.
Yes. No, rock throwing guy was great. Don't you besmirch rock throwing guy. I loved rock guy.
There's a giant caveman there. There's a legit giant like caveman amongst this group of people.
And Jack is like such
He's
a
like
bro to
Encino Man.
Teal'c because Teal'c's like, I have nowhere to go, and then Jack goes, for this you can stay at my place.
Oh yeah, that's actually the line that sold Richard Dean Anderson on the show, because he was very concerned that fucking Kurt Russell is such a humorless character, and Kurt Russell is not a humorless actor. Kurt Russell
we talked about how he's just oozing charisma.
Yes, we talked about it. So it's a deliberate choice in the movie that he's very subdued. He did not want to play that character for 7 seasons, or at least for a pilot. So he was like, you know what? I'm not doing that character. And I never really watched much MacGyver, so I don't know how much the personalities of MacGyver and Jack O'Neill overlap. But he was sold on like, that's the character right there. That line is the character, and that's the character I'm going to build. And, very much so, that's where they go.
Yeah. He gets really funny. He's a funny character, and he's fun to hang out with, and you like him. And I enjoyed him, and it was nice to see him around and being funny. And his hair is so much better. The other thing that I wanted to point out, the Gould guard, the Jaffa guard at the end of the line, his eyes aren't glowing. His eyes are broken, or they forgot to make his eyes glow, but his eyes don't glow.
Well, Jaffa's eyes don't glow. Gould's eyes glow.
Well, no, because they have the snake head pieces on. Right?
Oh, okay. When it goes down, yes.
Yeah, and
okay,
the eyes of the snake,
the LED lights were burnt out or something.
Yeah, they weren't working in one of the ones at the end of the line.
Oh yeah, there's a little bit of a mistake. Yeah.
And then later on, when you see one of the Jaffa die, the lights in the snake eyes go out. That guy was a zombie.
Yeah.
Confirmed that guy was zombie. It's just my little.
Yeah. So they get into they blow out the wall and escape, and
you learn the Jaffa backstory as they're fleeing.
Yeah, he's they are puppets. They essentially have to have Gould children inside of them, or else they die. They are a symbiotic race to the Gould, which leaves them as slaves to the Gould. But Teal'c is breaking that by deciding to revolt, which I don't know. I know that they established earlier that he killed a guy guy who was going to revolt, but I don't know how much of a revolution already existed at this point in the series against the
it
Gould
wasn't
by
a
the Jaffa.
lot. Like, I think some
I think there's
people
like they
had.
established there's one village later on that they find the free Jaffa.
Mm-hmm.
They
but
don't.
this is the start, basically, of your third act battle sequence.
Yes.
Right? This is your...
Yeah, they're running back to the gate and getting attacked.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody, Kowalski...
The ships show up.
Kowalski remembered to bring a fucking Stinger missile.
Oh, thank you,
because,
Kowalski.
like, he's like, I remember those fucking flying death ships.
Yep, you remembered those damn ships from
like,
his
this
part
time,
in the
I'm
last
gonna bring
movie.
down something that can shoot down an Apache helicopter.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I'm gonna fuck your shit up. And they show up and they're so great. The ships, the little gliders are so great. I love them. The teleporting rings show up again as the Gould are fleeing. They're trying to get away from everybody. Well, they're not fleeing. They're just leaving because they've got what they wanted.
the shuttle is new to the
Stargate.
television show.
Yeah, the shuttles are cool.
They're
I
like
the
basically, they look
shuttles.
kind of like a mash between a pyramid and a death glider.
And it's awesome, and I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then a bunch of these poor refugees die. It's not great.
There is a shot of a dude who gets a straight up hole through him with a laser blast. It's pretty violent.
Brutal.
Which, like, the violence, I guess, is mostly kept. We watched the kind of the general broadcast version, the one that, like, I believe, I don't know about the DVD, but it's not the original broadcast version, because the original broadcast version was the Showtime broadcast version, and that's the one with full frontal nudity.
Oh, yeah, we didn't see that.
Yeah, because in those scenes where you
did tell me that you distinctly remember boobies.
Yeah, no, I thought it was crazy because I think I watched it on the DVD or something, or I watched some version of it that was the original Showtime broadcast version, which is the rarer version because it's primarily mostly just cutting out the scenes of Charest and that blonde actress being fully frontal nude.
Oof.
Which it doesn't really add anything to the story, and obviously you're going to cut that for syndication because you can't show Bush.
No, you can't show that at 8
You can't
o'clock
show,
in the morning.
you can't show boobs and Bush on
At 8
broadcast
o'clock in the
television at
morning.
8 in the morning. Yeah, so
no, where
but I
grade
think,
eights are watching
I
it.
think that maybe there might have been a little bit more violence in this scene in the other cut, but I'm not entirely
It's
sure.
still
but
pretty
it's still,
brutal.
It's still pretty violent, which I enjoy.
Yeah. Kowalski comes to the rescue and he saves them from all dying horribly because he goes up over the ridge and he mows down a bunch of the Jaffa that are chasing them. The Gould peace out.
Caveman starts throwing rocks.
Yes, after the survivors make a break for it. And this is where you get the terrible reveal that Scar is possessed. Oh no.
Oh yeah, he turns towards the camera and smiles and his eyes
And his eyes glow, and he's got a ribbon device, and it's not great. And Jack is very thrown and upset. But Kowalski, because Kowalski is a bro, covers for him while he's processing the fact that Scar is possessed.
Actually, that's the other thing, because I distinctly remember, maybe this is also from the original cut, but I distinctly remember a shot as they're fleeing through the gate of Kowalski getting that Gould in the back of his head. And his
it
eyes
happens
glowing.
when he comes around the corner after he's walking through the water.
Did you see that happen in this episode specifically?
I remember the moment where he came around the corner and they were around the water, and it's like, that's it. That's where he's been
No, because
possessed.
I actually remember that it was in the confusion when everyone's running into the gate, he trips and falls, and there's another Jaffa there, or a young Jaffa or something who... No, it's one of the Jaffa guards who gets killed, and the young Gould comes out of him and then goes into Kowalski. That's where that Gould comes from.
Oh.
Again, I distinctly remember that scene.
I did
It
not
happened. Don't
see
tell
it.
me it didn't happen. I know it happened.
Okay, I believe you, but I didn't see it.
No,
so-
yeah, no, it's... so it might have been in the nudie cut.
Yeah, it must have been, because I thought it was when he comes around the corner after he's been like, they've been hanging out by the water, because that's where they all live, right?
Yeah.
They live in water. So I thought that.
No, I remember
that's where
it
was,
specifically
but-
coming out of a fallen Jaffa.
Huh, that's weird. But also, they should have kept that in. Sam's claymores were good for something because the Jaffa come over the ridge and they hit the claymore line that she's put up, so they all explode.
Yeah,
So
we
it's
get some nice
And you don't have
pyrotechnics.
nobody says, "Oh, thanks, Sam." Nobody's like, "Hey, we were wrong about your claymores, Sam." Boom, and they all explode, and it's like, "Oh, that's great." The Jaffa have stormtrooper aim.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? They're not very good at hitting. I love Rock Guy.
Yeah.
Rock Guy's my hero. He's like, I'm going to fuck up these Jaffa with rocks. And then he does. And it's great. And he just throws a rock and he hits and then he cheers. And I love him so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
He's like, raw! And then Jack's like, well, okay.
I like to point out politically too, SG1 is very pro-refugee.
Yes, they are.
They
Because
get-
they're like, we got to get these refugees back to Earth.
Yeah, and then when they go through the gate and all end up through, he's like, don't shoot, especially not the big guy with the rocks.
Yeah, they're like, don't shoot, don't shoot. They're refugees. And so all these army guys are like, oh, but we want it the guns and we want to shoot them. And then all these refugees come through, and then Rock Guy comes through and he's holding a rock, and they're like, oh, and they all bring up their weapons, and it's like, yep.
They also do the thing with Teal'c too,
and
he Jack's like, no, Teal'c's with me. He says specifically, like, and if you agree with me or something, or if you listen to me, Teal'c is the next member of SG1.
Mm-hmm. He says that at the end of the episode.
Teal'c's headpiece, by the way, and I think this is all through the first season. I don't believe they changed it till the second season. Teal'c's headpiece, his mark, the gold oval on his forehead, which is elaborated later on lore wise, is two pieces. It's the circle and then the snake in the inside, and it kind of looks like there's mostly flesh in between, and then they change it to just one big solid piece,
which was probably way easier to put on.
Yes, I think that was the decision, basically.
Yeah, but yeah, they get through the Stargate. They put in the iris code and they get through, and
thunk thunk thunk,
and then when
Jaffa coming through,
because the iris closes behind them and you hear the flat sounds of them hitting it, and it's really nice. The refugees are happy to see the U.S. military. That's nice. There's foreshadowing of the alien shenanigans to come with Samuels, the second in command.
Yes.
Because he's all pissy about Teal'c.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm so ready to do an autopsy. Woo! And then you get a really awesome group shot.
Yep.
You get a group shot of SG1 standing on the ramp.
Yeah, everybody poses for a photo no one is taking.
Yes.
Yeah, just like at the end of Return of the Jedi.
Yes, they all stand there. And Rock Guy lives.
Yes.
Which was really important to me.
And if you'll have him, the next member of SG2.
Oh my God, wouldn't that have been amazing? Just SG2 has Rock Guy on it, and just once in a while they cross.
How do you get the elite guard of a god, and we get the guy who throws rocks?
But Rock Guy is an amazing member of the team. He just turns out to be an awesome member of the team, and they're like, never mind, we'll take Rock
some special.
Guy.
They get like a Q who specials up some special rocks for him. Like,
yes,
this rock explodes. This rock turns into a gas.
And he's like, put correct markings on it. I guess that would just
technically be grenades.
Yeah, it would be. They just give him all the grenades. They're like, he's so good at throwing rock. He's equally good at throwing grenades.
Yeah, he just be Grenadier.
Grenadier.
Grenadier. Yeah.
Grenadier? Oh my God.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's basically the end of the episode, right?
Yep.
Or the pilot, anyway.
Yeah, I know we used to do it, and I'm not sure if we did it at last episode, but have we come up with the SG rating system? Have we nailed that down?
I thought we rated it 1 to 5, and 5 was good, and 1 was not so good.
Wouldn't 1 be good because SG1's the best team, though?
No, didn't we say that was way too confusing when we did it the first time?
Yeah.
I can't remember what our rating system was. Do you want to pause it and listen?
No, it's fine. Let's just do it. Let's just rate this episode. Okay, so let's do 5. 5 is a good number. 5 lets you know. So SG5 being the best, SG1 being the worst, weirdly.
Okay, we're not rating it on SG teams, though, because if we were to do that, our rating system would be really dumb. Remember? Because we talked about this, and it would be dumb and confusing. So we're going to do it like everybody else does it, because that's just easier for everyone to understand.
So just a 1 to 5?
Yes.
Okay.
So 1 to 5. So what would you rate this 2-part pilot?
Drum roll, please.
Hold on.
She's drum rolling. It's like a 4, 4.5.
A 4?
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty high.
It suffers a little bit, I think, on the production end because the special effects and the limited sets and the obvious Vancouver forest. But it does
to us though. You got to remember, it's obvious to us.
Yeah,
we're Canadian, and it's like, that's Vancouver.
The slowest parts of the episode are the parts where they're basically just having to tell you what happened in the movie so that you're all up to date. I feel like if you cut most of that out, you could probably get this down to maybe 1 episode as opposed to 2. But I think it's one of the best pilots, definitely one of the best sci-fi TV show pilots I've seen.
Yeah, it's very good.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, it's like a 4.5. A little bit of room to improve, but coming out of the gate strong. So
I was gonna say like a 3.5 because I was like, it's good, but yeah, that beginning's a little slow. But I'm thinking about it now, and I pointed out specifically, I really like this, I really like that, this is really good, that's really good. And I didn't really say a lot of things that upset me about it. So maybe I'm just being too harsh. But you know what? Yeah, I think a 4. But a solid 4, not like a 4.5.
So if someone was doing like a watcher of this series, but they're like, I don't have time to watch every episode, this would be like one you would recommend? You'd say,
yeah, especially if you're not watching the movie. Because I wouldn't recommend people who aren't fans of Stargate to watch the movie. If you're a fan of Stargate, watch the movie. You'll like it. But you'll be like, look at all the old-timey versions of things I love. But if you're not a fan and you're like, I don't have a lot of time to watch it, yeah, watch this. It gives you the layup, especially of the first season, because in that first season, stuff comes up again occasionally where they'll mention like, oh, I miss Skara or whatever. And you'll be like, what's going on now? Who's Skara? So you should watch this. Watch this one. This is a good introduction to the series. It's the intro to all your characters. And it's also really fun to look at these characters in their pilot form and be like, oh, these are not the characters that they turn out to be.
Yeah.
Either through character growth or just through the natural process of finding your rhythm when you're writing characters.
All right. So that was our second episode of Stargating with SG1, Children of the Gods, Part 1 and 2, the pilot episode of the flagship series of the Stargate franchise.
I'm so excited we're finally starting the series.
Yes, I am too. It's going to be a little rough with these next couple episodes. I think the next episode, Enemy Within, which we will be covering soon, is a very good episode, but it kind of doesn't really get the series started until the third episode, where you get to them going through gates and doing stuff.
Yes. That's where you really get into like the fun.
So keep an eye
out
for those episodes. If you like this content, we also have other content on the SoundCloud channel as well as Apple Podcasts. We have our series, our ongoing D&D series, Roll Masters, where Tamara guides a group of adventurers, including myself, through a life or death mystery.
They just finished The Fountain of Youth.
Yes, we also have podcasts up. Our That's the Space Station podcast with Tamara, Shay, and I, where we discuss many popular topics. We just finished the Scream podcast, which is going to be coming out very soon.
Yes, I believe so. And we also recorded recently our Sherlock
pilot
BBC.
episode. Yes, we are going to be reviewing the pilot episode of Sherlock as well. So keep an eye out for that. If you want to support us, check out our Patreon. We have some additional content up there as well. But don't forget to like and subscribe. And thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.